everybody. Let me ask you a question to start with. What is the one part of your process that, if it went twice as fast, would instantly boost your output? Or do you feel like your team is working harder than ever, but output isn't reflecting it? Congratulations! You have a bottleneck in your operation. And the top secret is every factory has got one, and it is all about how you manage it. In today's video, I'll walk you through how to identify bottlenecks in your production, and which I believe you'll find this video very useful. And I'll also explain about not just where they are, but why they exist and what to do about them. Whether you are running a high mix, low volume shop, or you are scaling production to meet new demand, this is where you start getting control back. So let's dive into how to identify bottlenecks in your production. First of all, let's start with the basic. What is bottleneck really? Bottleneck is the stage in your production process that limits your overall output. Think of it like the narrowest part of a funnel. No matter how much you pour in, only so much it can come out. For example, if one station takes 20 minutes per unit and everything else takes 5 minutes, you've got a problem there. And that means 20 minutes stage is dictating the speed of your entire line. And it's not always a machine or a process. Sometimes it's your data, your decision making, or your changeover times that are the real delays. So, we know what bottleneck is. Let's talk about how to spot them. I always say bottleneck doesn't shout, it shows up in symptoms. You've just got to know what to look for. So here are the 5 biggest signs your process is crying out for help, and they are usually hiding in plain sight. Let's dive into what they look like. The first one to look up is work in progress stacking up. If you are walking in the shop floor and notice pallets, trolleys, trays, or tubs just sit there waiting in front of one machine or process, there's a visual red flag. This stage can't keep up with what's feeding into it, and unless you've got deliberate buffer designed in, that's your choke point really. The second sign is the next stage in this process is about sitting idle. So if the process after bottleneck keeps stopping, or operators are waiting around with nothing to work on, the constraint is upstream. And don't blame the operators. If they are starved of parts, it's not a labor issue, it's the flow issue. Third one is the overtime and stress. Always follow a bottleneck. If one team is staying late or pulling weekend shifts just to keep production moving while others are going home on time, that's not normal. So that team is observing the constraint. They are compensating for a system imbalance. This area needs to be balanced as soon as possible. The fourth sign, your lead time are all over the place, very common again. Sometimes it takes 3 days to ship, sometimes it takes 3 weeks with no clear reason. That's because your bottleneck can't keep a consistent rhythm, and when it slips, it causes a knock-on effect across the whole schedule. And the final one is constant firefighting or rescheduling. You're always changing the plan, chasing one urgent job after another, firefighting instead of flowing. That's your system trying to work around the bottleneck. You're not in control of your plan, you are just reacting to a bottleneck in this situation. So now here's the thing. These signs don't always show up in isolation. Often it's combination of work in progress building up, operators getting frustrated, lead times becoming unpredictable. It all traces back to weak link really. But once you know the signs, you know where to look for. So next, I'll show you exactly how to identify where your bottlenecks in your factory into a simple diagnostic process. Now, using the signs, let's talk about how to pinpoint exactly where the bottleneck is. Because here's the thing, in most factories, it's not always where you think it is. It's not necessarily the most expensive machine or the one with the biggest backlog. It is the step that dictates the maximum pace your whole process can run at. Here's how I approach it when I work with manufacturing companies. In my step one, I map the production process for products from raw materials to finished goods. If we give an example of electronics manufacturing, the process starts from receiving the order, labor time involved from the start of the process, bill of materials preparation through SMT setup, preparation, machinery runtime, process through second ops process time, testing time, quality control, packaging time, shipping costs. So this is how I do. I go into each stage and go into detail a process. However, you don't have to go into too much detail at this stage. If you keep it simple to start with, identify what happens on the shop floor, each stage decision point, how long it takes at each stage of process, that would give you an idea of if making sense. What gut feeling will tell you that you need more data, then you know what to do. Get in touch with me and let's discuss what we can do. Measuring cycle time per process, tracking how long each step takes, each stage takes, and not just what's supposed to happen, but what exactly happens on the floor. Take a look at cycle time versus available time for each stage. For example, if your testing stage takes 5 minutes per unit and you only got one test ring for 8-hour shift, your daily capacity is 96 units, assuming zero downtime obviously. But if your assembly can do 150 units a day, your test station becomes the limiter. Another powerful way to spot it is to follow the work in progress. Obviously, I did mention this before. Look for cues. High work in progress before a process means it's slower than upstream. The fourth step 4 is calculating process capacity. What is your maximum output per hour each stage and what is your lowest capacity? Simple trick is look at the waiting time versus actual process time. Again, it sometimes takes 2 minutes to test, but spending 6 hours in a queue, that tells your testing capacity can't keep up. And watch the flow, spend time on the shop floor, where the things slow down, where is the operator overloaded and where is the machine waiting. Ask your team, ask where they lose the most time, where they're always chasing, where they know things are get stuck. Your operators and supervisors already know where the flow breaks. They live in it every day. So once you map the flow, compare processes capacity and follow the work in progress, the bottleneck becomes obvious. At this stage, the longest queue, the most delay, or the lowest throughput or output. And once you found it, that's where you put your focus because optimizing anything else before the bottleneck doesn't increase output. So that is the reality. Some of the most common bottlenecks I've seen in the factories, including SMT placement in electronics, especially when changeover are long or the machine used for both R&D and production. Testing stage when functional testing becomes the quality gate and only one station can do it. Second ops manual finishing, labor-intensive tasks like trimming, inspection, or assembly often hold back output. Material handling, it's not always a machine, sometimes it's just poor layout or inefficient movement of materials. Commercial approval delays, very typical one. Pricing artwork or purchasing delays can hold back manufacturing even when machines are ready. But what to do next? Once you identify your bottleneck, don't rush into fixing it with more labor and other machines. That would be a mistake. Start by improving what you've got. Can you reduce downtime, cut changeovers, balance the workload? Often I found 20-30% more capacity just by improving processes flow and layout before touching capex. What I mean by capex is the capital expenditure. And if investment is needed, now you've got the data to justify your expenses, so because you know exactly what it will unlock. Identifying your bottleneck isn't about finding fault, it's about finding leverage. Once you know where your constraint is, you know where to focus your energy for the biggest return. If this video sparks some ideas, or if you are wondering what your bottleneck might be, drop me a message. I help manufacturers like you turn this insight into action without the guesswork. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone in your ops or production team. Let's make manufacturing flow again. I put some resources for you. Just download and grab them. One of them is a scorecard about bottleneck processes and financial performance. That's very useful. Please have a go. The other one is 5 costly mistakes that push manufacturers towards bankruptcy and how to avoid it. This again very useful information there you can download for free. And this is me. My name is Yesim. I am a director of Skynet Accounting. I'm a finance specialist in manufacturing industry, helping manufacturers with the production efficiencies, capacity utilization, as well as compliance and taxation. Thank you for listening and see you soon again. Thank you.